Amazon was once on the edge of collapse. But instead of playing safe, it made a decision that most companies would never take. A decision that looked completely wrong at the time. But that decision changed everything.
So picture this, Amazon has just barely survived the dot-com crash. But, just surviving isn't the same as succeeding. The company found itself at a real crossroads, facing a single choice that would define everything that came next. And it was a choice that went against basically every instinct in the market. So that's what we're going to break down here. The one strategic move that took Amazon from just another dot-com survivor and turned it into the global powerhouse we know today. It's a fascinating story about a calculated contrarian bet. To really get the scale of this decision and the risk involved, we first have to understand the world Amazon was operating in. This was a pretty unique moment in business history. After that dot-com bubble burst, investors were completely spooked. The conventional wisdom, the thing everyone was telling internet companies, was to play it safe. Conserve your cash, cut back, and focus on getting profitable immediately. So the market had these really clear expectations. Cut your costs, avoid any big risks, show us a profit now. And what did Amazon do? The exact opposite. They decided to invest more, expand aggressively, and focus on long-term dominance. It was a move that, at the time, seemed to defy all logic. And make no mistake, this wasn't an accident or some kind of oversight. It was an intentional, strategic choice. Amazon deliberately zigged while everyone else was zagging, all because they were chasing a vision that the rest of the market just couldn't see yet. Now, it's easy to look back and think of this as a reckless gamble, but it was a deeply calculated decision. They chose to pour money into the very things everyone else was cutting back on, things like massive infrastructure, new technology, and pushing into all new product categories. And of course, that was the big question on everyone's mind. Critics, analysts, investors, they were all asking, why? Why are you burning through so much cash when you've only just scraped by? From a short-term perspective, it just didn't make sense. Well, the answer to that question all comes down to a core philosophy, a philosophy that became the bedrock of the entire company, a playbook that valued tomorrow way more than it valued today. Jeff Bezos' guiding principle was actually pretty simple, but it was incredibly powerful. If you want to win in the future, you have to be willing to sacrifice in the present. While everyone else was obsessing over their quarterly earnings reports, Amazon was focused on building a company that would dominate for decades to come. But this long-term mindset wasn't just a vague idea. It was built on two very real, interconnected pillars, and these two concepts worked together to create this incredible engine for growth. Pillar number one was this relentless obsession with the customer. Amazon systematically chose lower prices, faster delivery, and better service, all to build fierce customer loyalty, and that meant operating on razor-thin margins. It was a deliberate trade, sacrifice profit today in exchange for a dedicated customer base tomorrow. And once they earned that trust, that customer loyalty, well, that became their launchpad. With a brand that people trusted, Amazon could then expand aggressively into all sorts of new categories, from electronics to clothing, and start that journey of becoming the everything store. Okay, so that's the playbook. But how did they actually pull it off? Well, the result of this long-term, contrarian strategy was the creation of a competitive advantage that was, for all intents and purposes, unbeatable. The execution followed this really clear cause and effect loop that just kept reinforcing itself. They invested massively in logistics, which let them offer a better customer experience with lower prices and faster shipping, which in turn fueled even more growth and expansion. Now, this is the really critical part. This strategy required an incredible amount of patience. It meant having a culture and investors who were willing to look unprofitable on paper for years. It was a huge test of their conviction. But as that infrastructure, all those warehouses and delivery networks grew, a really powerful effect started to take hold. Amazon just got faster, more efficient, and more scalable than any competitor could ever hope to be. And that, right there, was the end game. Amazon had built what's known as a competitive moat. It wasn't based on a patent or some secret software, but on a physical and digital infrastructure that was just too expensive and too complex for anyone else to copy. So when you trace it all back, that single, contrarian decision, made during a time of widespread fear, was the turning point.
It's what changed the company's entire trajectory from being just another survivor to becoming an inevitable industry leader.
Ultimately, Amazon's story really shows that it didn't become a giant by playing it safe. It got there by making bold, long-term decisions when everyone else was afraid to move. And it kind of makes you wonder, in any industry, is the safest path ever really the one that leads to true dominance?
This is CorpFile, inside the world of big brands. Subscribe to explore the real stories behind the companies that shape our world.